We are going to be narrating the top 8 of the Planetary Qualifier Leiden. First of all, a big thank you to the organizers, the Tafel Ridder, that made sure that this event was run very smoothly. In my entire history of going to competitive events, I've only seen one other star doing as good of a job as they have, so that does say something. Good organizers are hard to come by, and it's good to see that they were up to the task. On the left, we have Christoph with Bossk Blue, and on the right, we have Mikolash navigating Boba Green. Both are decks that are somewhat on the control side, but I do expect Boba to have a little bit more of an aggro mid-range plan in the early game to try and push some damage in. Bossk leads up for the mulligan. It looks like they were not able to find the cards that they needed for their early game plan, which is quite necessary in order to survive until they can start playing their super laser blast and stuff like that. And now that they're starting to decide what to resource. Bossk is starting with the initiative, so we're most likely going to see an initiative claim on their side, and Boba plays Greedo. A very solid play because this one is able to deal 3 damage every single turn and demands removal early on. Both players pass and we're off to turn 2. Bossk starts off by passing priority back to Boba, hoping for a better target than the Greedo to play their open fire on. But Boba ends up swinging for 3 and then following that up with a resupply, putting them 1 resource ahead and almost ready to put the Boba onto the field. Bossk still goes ahead and removes the Greedo with the open fire. And then we're off to turn 3 with Boba taking the initiative. Mikolash goes ahead and plays Salacious Grump, a 1-drop that heals 1 damage off the base when played, and that is neat because it can put itself back into hand by dealing 1 damage to a ground unit, creating a recurring threat that sometimes clears something off the board to get that free ramp with Boba as well. Since Boba is now at 5 resources, they can flip the leader and start pressuring Bossk base even further. Bossk plays Dr. Pershing. This card is great as a card draw engine that is relatively difficult to remove in the early game, but even with the current board state, if Boba were to swing into it, it's going to require at least 2 swings to get it off the board. Boba plays a Super Laser Technician and Bossk claims the initiative. Christoph leads off by pinging the Doctor to get a card draw. Mikolash swings with the Laser Technician and Christoph puts a Death Mark on it. Death Mark is an interesting card because if Bossk can flip and deploy, then it can get a massive 4-card draw by removing it. Mikolash, however, predicts this play, so decides to waylay the Super Laser Tech back into the hand to not give Bossk any value of that Death Mark. Bossk still flips, but Boba swings into it with a Hotshot Blaster, clearing it off the board immediately. Bossk plays an out-of-aspect Enticing Reward, having to pay an extra 2. Enticing Reward is similar to Death Mark, except instead of drawing 2 cards, you get to look at the top 10, and then you get to draw 2 non-unit cards. Yet again, another 2-for-1 value engine. That's what makes this deck so good. Boba claims the initiative, and we're off to the next turn. Boba swings the base for 6. It's not looking too great for Bossk at this point, because that Boba is incredibly strong and the base is already at half health at this point. We see Pershing attacking into the Boba for 0 damage. I'm not really sure what the game plan or reasoning is behind this play, but perhaps they were just trying to deny Boba any ramp value later on by clearing it. Salacious Grump swings for 1 to the base, and Takedown gets rid of the Boba, giving Christoph 2 cards from the bounty and picking Power of the Dark Side and Death Mark for future turns. The Fire Spray comes down, but instantly gets loaded up with a Death Mark, and Mikolash swings the base for 5, leaving Bossk with just 9 health to spare. Stuff is in a tough spot now. Even with resourcing, they're still a resource short from playing a Super Laser Blast this turn, but they can still get a Rival's Fall in on the Fat Fire Spray, claiming the draw to bounty in the process. Boba plays the Bazine, being able to strip a card from Bossk's hand. There's a lot of threats in here though. We see an Avenger, there's a Super Laser Blast, but there's also a Snoke that could put in quite some work. After giving it some thought, Boba has decided to get rid of the Snoke instead of the other 2 cards and giving Bossk a card draw. Top mark is put on Crump. Crump is then returned back to the hand in response so that the top mark can't gain any value, and they are unfortunately forced to put that 1 damage on the Bazine. Bossk decides to just claim the initiative. Another Super Laser Tech comes down, and the Crump as well. At this point, Christoph has a super laser blast in hand, and Mikolaj doesn't have any threats that can deal a ton of damage, so there's a little bit of a chance for Bossk to take over, but they are very low on life at this point of time. Christoph leads off the turn by clearing the board with a super laser blast, giving Boba some ramp from the super laser attack, the Darth Vader for 7, searching the top for a lurking TIE Phantom. Bossk claims the initiative yet again, and Boba plays yet another super laser technician, and we move on to the next turn. Make an opening makes quick work of the TIE Phantom, but does leave the Darth Vader behind on the board, ready to deal a ton of damage. To make matters even worse, Boba now plays a hotshot blaster on the Darth Vader, spiking 7 damage. Top target is played on the super laser technician. Boba attacks, and Bossk then clears it by pinging it for 1 damage, yielding 4 damage off the base, but still leaving himself in range of the Darth Vader. At this point, Mikolaj could claim the initiative to not be cut off by a super laser blast in the follow-up turn, but on the other hand, they don't know what cards Christoph has in hand right now, and there could be plenty of removal in there that can both remove the Darth Vader and then potentially a future threat in the follow-up turn. So Boba decides to play the Maul instead, adding another 7 power attacker to the board, and Christoph claims the initiative. Christoph looks at the draws, sees the writing on the wall, and decides to scoop. So that leaves us with 1-0 for Boba Green, and we're off to game number 2. Alright, so both players are done sideboarding, and here starts game number 2. We see Christoph passing and Boba straight away claiming the initiative. Boba then plays super laser attack in the second turn, and Bossk plays a death mark on top of it, but decides not to kill it with Bossk just yet. My guess is that they're hoping to cash in on a quadruple draw in a future turn, as well as leaving Boba 1 resource short of deploying, buying Bossk another turn. Mikolaj attacks with the technician for 2 damage, Christoph passes, and then Mikolaj ends up playing a resupply, putting it at the 5 resources anyway, ready to deploy Boba. Christoph passes again, Mikolaj deploys, and Christoph decides to ping the super laser attack now to get that draw too. Crafty Smuggler comes down with a shield token, and Christoph plays the Charlton, revealing 3 cards for that +3/+3. A 5/5 Sentinel that is quite troublesome for Boba to deal with because swinging into it doesn't defeat it, and it would deal a ton of damage back to Boba, so instead Mikolaj decides to claim the initiative. Both players are done resourcing. Vader comes down, clearing the Charlton and getting additional value by deploying a unit off the top. So unless Bossk can draw into a super laser blast at this point of time, it's looking like an uphill battle. The Phantom TIE Fighter comes down, Bossk 4 strokes the Bob, and Boba swings 5 into the base. Bossk deploys. Boba Fett's armor is being played onto Boba, making it even more difficult to clear it. I think it's not even a range of a 4-stroke anymore, and definitely not in an open fire range, which is quite awkward. Christoph decides to open fire the Darth Vader off the board instead. Boba claims the initiative without attacking, and Bossk swings into the Smuggler to get rid of the shield token. Boba starts off by clearing Bossk off the board. Christoph adds a top target to the Boba to hopefully heal some damage off the base. 2 damage to the base from the Smuggler, and Christoph plays open fire on Boba, dealing just enough damage to clear it off the board and getting a heal 4. The TIE Fighter attacks, and Christoph passes in the hope of seeing a better target to remove. Boba taps 6 and plays a Fett's Fire Spray. Christoph responds by 4-stroking the Smuggler off the board, knowing that Boba will want to connect with the Fire Spray anyway. At this point, Christoph decides to take the initiative again. Christoph passes priority and taking damage from the TIE Phantom. Passing again, taking damage from the Fire Spray, knowing that it can play the Super Laser Blast, but unfortunately, Boba has an amazing response. They play Relentless, which completely invalidates a Super Laser Blast. Christoph gracefully concedes, and a game well played by Mikolaj on Boba Green, knocking out one of the 2 Bossk Blues in the top 8. On screen right now is a quick overview of the standings after this round, and in the next game we're going to see Han Worth to Risk in action, which I'm personally quite excited about. If you like this first game, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Also feel free to click on the video on the screen right now so you can jump into the next game's action straight away.